In today's video, we're going to be making ourselves a game in Scratch called Flying High, where basically we are this little orange cat here who will be flying through the sky. Coming from the right hand side of the page, there will be things flying across the screen. Some that he has to collect, some that he has to avoid. Now the things he has to collect are the unicorns, the butterflies and the little hearts, which represent lives. You do start with 3 lives. Okay, you will get 1 point each time you collect a unicorn and a few extra points when you collect a butterfly. Also coming across the screen you will see some dragons. There are slow moving dragons which are green, and there are faster moving dragons which are red. Okay, and once you hit 3 of those it will be game over. So I'm going to run the game now. I'll turn my volume up the best I can so hopefully you can hear it through my speakers, and I'll show you what the game looks like. So hopefully you get the idea. We're able to collect those power-ups and get ourselves some points. We've got 4 lives at the moment. I'll hit a few dragons in a sec so I can lose some lives. And the game basically stops when you run out of lives, so I'll just run out of lives now. Okay, so there we go. Once you get back to 0 lives, it is game over. And unfortunately my score was -2 because I collected more dragons than I did unicorns and butterflies. Alright, so cool little game. You can add lots to it, but this is at least the basis for making a cool little flying game. So I'm going to go over to Scratch now, and I'll just save what I've got here, and I'll start a new document now. Okay, so when you start a new document, first thing you want to do is change this cat out. We're going to change it to a flying cat, so you can delete the sprite that's down there and make yourself a new sprite by hitting that little troll. Okay. We're going to look under themes today and look for the flying theme, and you'll see the cat one that's flying. Okay, so just double click on him and bring him in. If you want to give it a name, just like cat, it might be a bit more appropriate, that'll do. Now you'll see in the costumes too that we've got 2 different costumes there, so we'll use this costume when we press the up arrow, and for all other times we'll just be using the cat where he's flying straight across. Right, so that's fairly straightforward. Next thing we might do once we've got our cat in is bring in a backdrop to set the scene. So down the bottom there, choose a backdrop from your library, and I'm going to go with this blue sky with the green hedges in the background there. Okay, so just select that and press OK. That will put in your little backdrop. Which looks good. Might make my cat a little bit smaller. I think he's a little bit big at the moment, so I'm just going to grab my shrink tool from up the top and just click on him a couple of times to make him a bit smaller. Next thing we're going to need in this game to make it look like he's actually moving is some buildings, which are just going to go in the background here. So we're going to go to New Sprite again, and we just scroll down a little bit, you'll see buildings. Okay, now the buildings, to begin with, they look something like that. You want to put it on the right hand side of your page to start with, by the way, so move your building over to the right hand side of the page. And they don't look like that to start with, but if you look in the costumes there's all sorts of different buildings. So we're going to get all these different buildings to appear on our screen. So what is there? There's 10 different buildings that we can use in our backdrop there. So it's going to look like he's actually flying past different buildings and flying a long way if we can rotate through those different costumes as the screen moves. Right, something else in the background that we might throw in is some clouds. So we're going to make another new sprite and choose it from our library. In the flying option there, I want you to choose these clouds here because they've got a few costumes as well. This cloud doesn't, so we want to choose this one here. So we can have different clouds in the background as well. Now you want to make these clouds pretty small so they're not distracting and out of the way, so fairly small clouds. If you look in costumes you can see there's 4 different clouds there that will be rotating through our background. Okay, so that might do us to start with, and what we might do is try and get our cat flying and these buildings moving so it looks like the cat's cruising across the sky. Alright, so we'll start back on our cat sprite. Okay, what we're going to do first of all here is get him into his starting position, which is probably going to be somewhere around this point. Okay, you get to choose where you want him, but basically in the events tab when you click the green flag to start the game, we're going to go down to the motion tab and choose set X. Okay, don't need to set the Y. The Y value is anywhere along the page, up and down, but we're going to set the X value, so how far across to the left of the page he is. I can see my X value down here. Okay, so I want to position him somewhere in this area, so he's on the left hand side of the page. So I'm going to go about minus 150 for the X value. Now if you remember, if we go back to our scratch coordinates for a sec, the center of the page, the X value would be 0. So the further left we go, the more into the negative numbers we end up. Remember, minus 240 is the edge of the page, so he's roughly going to be positioned about here, so minus 150. Okay, so that'll be a good start. If we press the green flag button there, you can see that's his starting position, so that's pretty good. Now in this game I want to have a score, and I also want to have 3 lives to start with. Okay, so we might make those now before we go any further. So in the data tab here, let's make a variable up, one called score, press enter, and then make another variable, and we're going to call that one lives. Okay, they're 2 different numbers that can change. You could either keep them both there, or you might want to put one up in the top right corner. You can choose wherever you want to put them. Okay, but basically we want to set our lives to 3 when we start the game, and we want our score set to 0. Alright, so straight underneath this bit, once you've set your cat into position, what you want to do next is set your lives to 3, and then bring that set lives out again, but we're going to change lives to score, so we're going to set the score to 0. So each time we press that green flag, our lives and our score will reset back to their original values. Alright, we're going to adjust those later in the game. The other thing we want to do with this cat, we want to make sure he's in front of everything, so in the looks tab here, okay, there should be an option, go to front. You just have to scroll down a little bit to find that. So we'll just put him in front of all the other sprites, like the buildings and whatnot. We want him flying in front of those, not behind them. And if you want, you don't have to do this, but I had it on mine in the example. You get him to say something when he starts the game. Okay, so you can drag out this first option that says say hello for 2 seconds, and you can tell him to say something. In my example, I had time to fly, and that just appears for 2 seconds and then disappears. So if you run that code, you'll see this little speech bubble appear, time to fly, and then after 2 seconds it disappears. You'll also see the score there, and the lives have been set to their starting values. Alrighty, so that's looking good. Nice start. Alright, so next thing we want to do is get this cat moving. So when we press the right arrow and the left arrow, he moves left and right. When we press up and down, he moves up and down, obviously. Okay, so we're going to go to the events tab for this. And we're just going to bring this out. It says when space key pressed. We're just going to change that space key to the up arrow. I'm going to bring it out again. I'm going to do the down arrow. Into the left arrow. And the right arrow. Okay, so when we press each of those arrows, we need to tell Scratch what to do now, or what our program needs to do. So it's quite simple. With the up arrow and the down arrow, we change the Y values, or the Y coordinates of his current position. Okay, so remember, Y values go up and down, and that's what we're looking at the moment, the up and down keys. Alright, so what we're going to do is go back to the motion tab here, and we're going to just scroll down a little bit and look for change Y by. Now when you go up, you change Y by 10. Okay, when we're going to go down, we change Y by minus 10. Okay, remember the center point in our page is the Y value is 0. If you want to go down, you have to go into the negative numbers, so minus 10 in this case. If you wanted to move him up, we have to go positive 10. So now when I run the game, we should be able to move down, and we should be able to move up. Okay, can't move left and right yet, but he's moving up and down fine. Now to move left and right, simple one, it's along the x-axis now. So we need to change our x values. To move right, we need to move into the positive x values. To move left, we need to move into the negative x values. Alright, so just for the left, change x by minus 10. And then moving right, we change x by 10. Right, so that's pretty straightforward. When I run the game now, we should be able to move right, we should be able to move left, up and down. Okay, so that's working well. Now the other thing I was talking about before, our little cat has a second costume. So this one here that makes him look like he's flying up. And as I said before, I want that costume to appear when we press the up arrow. Okay, so what we're going to do here is do a little if-then statement. Okay, so we're going to start a new event when the green flag is clicked. And in the control tab here, we're going to bring out actually an if then else statement. So if something's happening, then perform an action. If it's not happening, then we're going to perform another action. And that'll make sense in just a sec when I put everything into this piece of code. So first of all, we need to work out if we're pressing the up arrow or not. So we go into the sensing tab here, and you'll see key space pressed. Drop that between the if and the then, and just change the space to the up arrow. So if the up arrow is being pressed, then what do we want to do? Well, we want to change the costume of the cat. So in the looks tab here, just switch costume to cat flying B. I think that's what it was called. Yeah, and it's cat flying A when he's just flying straight across. Alright, so when we press the up arrow, then we're switching our costume to cat flying B. And then we look in the else section. So what else do we do if we're not pressing the up arrow? Well then, we switch the costume to cat flying A, which is just the normal cat like this one here. So I'll just recap on that. When we start the game, if the up arrow is being pressed, then we're going to change our cat to the cat that's flying up, so cat flying B. If we're not pressing the up arrow, then we're just going to switch the costume to cat flying A, which is this one just here. Alright, now we need to wrap that in a forever loop as well, so that piece of code is constantly being run, and our game is always listening out for when we press that up arrow. So make sure the forever code is wrapped around everything there. Now when we run our game, you can move left, right and down, no issues. When you go up, he looks like he's Superman. Okay, so left, right and up and down. I mean, left, right and down will look the same, but when you go up, he looks like he's actually flying up. That's a cool little feature. This code's getting a bit messy here now. We're getting quite a bit in here. So what you can do is right-click your mouse in there and just click Clean Up. And that's just going to push your code into a bit more of a logical order. There's one more thing I want to put in here now, and that's some background music. Okay, and the way we put background music in, it's quite easy. In your Events tab here, bring out another when the green flag is clicked. Don't forget to bring out your forever loop, so we want this song to just keep playing forever, even when it finishes. And for the sounds, we've only got sound pop at the moment to pick from, which isn't very good background music. So what we need to do is go to our sounds tab up the top here, and we're going to make a new sound, or choose a new sound from our library. I generally look in the music loops section, and the one I found before that sounded pretty cool was this Ode Song B. So I'm just going to double click on that. I can get rid of that pop sound now, and if you want to have a listen to the Ode Song B, there it is. It's quite loud, so I might just click in here and press Control A to select it all, and just go to softer for the effect, and that will just turn it down by about 50%, so it's definitely not as loud. Alright, so it sounds good. So what we need to do now is choose the second option, play sound Ode Song B until done. Okay, make sure you got the one that has until done on the end so it plays through. So now when you run your game, you've got some background music. Don't think you could hear that through my speakers, but it is there, and you should hear it through yours. So for now, that is our cat all done. Okay, he's all coded up. He can move up, down, left and right, but it doesn't look like he's flying. What we need to do is get these buildings scrolling across the page, okay, over and over again, so in a loop, and that'll give the illusion that he's actually flying past them. All right, the background's going to stay put, but the buildings and even the clouds are going to be flying across the page on a bit of a loop. Okay, so let's go across to our buildings now, and we'll get started on those. All right, so first thing we need to do, as usual, in the Events tab, bring out when clicked. Okay, now the first thing you want to do is set its start position. Okay, so in motion, what you want to do is set the X value, not change it, but set the X value. We're going to set it to 250, so it's just hidden off our stage. Now remember, our stage is 240 pixels wide. Okay, if we set it to 250, it's going to be over here somewhere, just outside the screen. Okay, so we're going to set it just off the right hand side of the screen to begin with. The next thing we're going to do is go to Control, and we're going to bring in our repeat loop, or our for loop, which means we only repeat this code for a certain amount of time, and we're actually going to put 100 in there. Okay, and what we're going to do is change this X position. At the moment it's at 250. What we're going to do is change that X position. So choose change X by and write -5. Basically that's going to move the buildings -5 increments at a time, 100 times. So that's basically going to move our building across the page. Okay, and we're going to need to wrap this in a forever loop as well, so that code is constantly running and those buildings are always moving. Okay, so let's just wrap that in a forever loop and attach it to when the green flag's clicked. So we're always going to be running this code. Our building's always going to start at position 250. It's going to move across the page 100. It's going to move 100 times, -5 positions at a time. You'll see what it does actually. I can't explain it that well, but as we move it across, you can see the building going. Okay, so that's looking good. Alright, the issue is it's the same building every time. Remember I said in the costumes we've got all these different buildings that we can play with. Okay, so each time it loops around and comes back to the start position at X equaling 250, we basically want to change its costume as well. So in the looks tab here, you'll see the next costume button here. Just drag that below set X to 250. So next costume. So each time it comes across the page and then back to the start, it will change to a new building like that. Okay, so there's the next building. You watch, it'll go through those 10 different buildings. Alright, you don't need to see it all, but that's how it's working. Alright, so that's the buildings done. It's pretty simple. Okay, we're going to do something similar for the clouds. So instead of rewriting this code, what we're going to do is just, you don't even have to duplicate actually, you can just pick it up and drag it and drop it onto the clouds there. And when you go over to the clouds now, you've got the same code in there. There's just a couple of little things that we need to change to make this cloud a little bit different from the buildings. Now instead of having this cloud run all the way through in the same position, we can actually move its position, because you can see as we watch this cloud come through, it does change, but it's always running along that same axis. Okay, it doesn't go up or down at all, it's always in the same position. And we want to change that to make it look a little bit more realistic. So we just want to change the Y value. Okay, if we look back at the coordinates here, we've got a bit of space to play with, so we might as well tell our cloud to move up and down that Y-axis a bit. Alright, so what we need to do is go over to our motion tab here, and you've got the option to set Y to 0 at this stage. We're going to pick that up and put it just under setting the X. So the X value is where it starts horizontally, so it's going to start at position 250, so just off the edge of the stage. The Y value though, we want it to appear anywhere in the blue sky. Okay, so we're going to tell it to pick a random position each time. So we're going to go into the operators tab here and choose pick random 1 to 10. We're going to change these values 1 to 10. Now basically we want the clouds to appear, if you watch the Y values here, we want them to appear in the sky from say, let's say about this area. So that's about Y, let's say Y50. Type that in. And we want them to go up near the top of the page. So you don't want to go right at the top of the page and get cut off, so that's about 180. We'll come down to about 170, 165, right at 165. So now when our clouds come across the page, they're going to start off the page at position or X position 250, and then they're going to start anywhere between 165 for the Y value, which is about there, all the way down to the 50 value, which is about there. So we've got a bit of extra room now for our clouds to appear on the page. So now when we run the game, just watch the first cloud, it's just stuck above that building there, but now it's up higher. Now it's a little bit lower behind that building again. Okay. So the issue is it's coming out at the same time as the building now. So what we're going to have to do is just put a little delay on that cloud. So to put the delay on that cloud, just go to your control tab here. All you want to do is choose this first option here. I'm going to tell the cloud to wait before it comes across the page. So we're going to go and put that just underneath when the green flag is clicked. So we're going to tell it to wait, let's say 2 seconds. And then it can start flying across the page. Now if you run that now, that cloud's probably going to sit there for 2 seconds and not move. We'll just have a look. And then it's going to start moving. So it looks a bit awkward sitting there at the start doing absolutely nothing. So what we need to do is hide it at the start. So in the looks tab here, tell that cloud to be hidden. Okay, so it's going to be hiding off the stage, waits 2 seconds, and then we get into the movement process. Now before it starts moving, we actually need to bring it back and show it. So put show above the setting the X and Y value so it actually appears on your stage and then starts moving. A little bit confusing, but let's have a look at that. So we wait 2 seconds, and then the first cloud comes out. Okay, so that's looking good. Now it should change its its Y position, so it'll get higher or lower each time. So far it's looking good. That looks pretty realistic. Alright, so that's our clouds looking good. Alright. What else have we got we can put in here now? I might quickly put in the little heart so we can earn some extra lives, and then I'll stop the video and come back in the second part and show you how to do the good guys and the bad guys. So what we want to bring in now is another new sprite. Okay, and we're looking for that little love heart. I'm not sure which category it's in, but there it is there. It's under the word heart. So click OK and bring that into your game. Comes out very big, so just shrink that down. You want it to be fairly hard to collect. Okay, just getting a new life in the game is a bit of a reward. Okay, and we basically want this to fly across the page, much like the buildings and the clouds. Alright, so I'm just going to go to the clouds here and drag that code over onto the heart. So this code's copied over. Okay, so when clicked, we're going to hide the heart, and we don't want the heart to come out very often. Okay, so we're going to wait maybe 10 seconds before the first heart comes out onto the page. If you run your game, you'll see that that's not going to appear for a little while now. So you've got to actually go through and avoid a few enemies and collect a few of the unicorns and butterflies before you'll see the first heart appear. So there it is there. Okay, it's come out purple for some reason, but oh, it's because it's got a different costume. I'll see what's happening. That's alright. If we just get rid of that next costume there, we won't have that issue. So just delete the next costume by dragging it off the page and snapping your code back in there. So we'll have the red heart all the time. Alright, so let's have a look. When the green flag's clicked, we hide the heart, we wait 10 seconds, and then we show it, and then it starts moving. Okay, we don't care where this heart shows up. It shouldn't be limited to just being in the sky. So this setting the Y value, it can go. Okay, so set Y, just scrap it, and paste your other code back in there. So hopefully you saw me, the way I deleted that code was just dragged it across into this area, and it disappears. So we'll set the X position to 250, that's fine. Repeat 100 times and change the X by -5, that's all good. Let's have another look and make sure that's all good. Just have to wait for it to come out. There it is. Okay, so through it goes. Now it's going to appear constantly now, which is not what we want. Okay, when it gets to the end there, I think we should hide it again and wait probably a good 30 to 60 seconds, I reckon, before it appears on the screen again. Remember, these hearts want to be pretty hard to collect, and they shouldn't come across the screen too often. So in your looks tab here, we're just going to have to drag this hide down the bottom here, and that's going to hide it when it gets off the edge of the page. Okay, then we want to wait before we go back to the start of this loop and show it again. So what we can do is go to the yellow control tab here, and remember we've got this wait option. Okay, so just drag that below hide. Now you could say 30 seconds. I was thinking somewhere between 30 and 60 seconds, so it pops up at a random time each time it rolls around. So let's go to the operators here and choose pick random, and we'll get this heart to come back between 30 and 60 seconds. Okay, so now when you run it, I know it's going to be a bit annoying to watch this, you'll see the first heart come through after 10 seconds, and then you have to wait at least another 30 to 60 seconds before it comes back again. So hopefully when it goes off the edge of the page here, it doesn't come straight back. Okay, and we'll just have to trust that it takes 30 to 60 seconds before it actually reappears. Alright, so that's good. The other thing we need to do is we need to be able to collect those hearts and earn ourselves an extra life. Okay, we start with 3, but if we get a heart, obviously that's going to go up. So just make a new event. It's the when clicked. In the control tab there, we'll just put a forever loop in, because the piece of code we're going to put in here is going to run forever. Now the code is an if-then statement. Okay, so I'll just bring this out separately for a second. So if our heart senses the cat touching it. Okay, so we need to bring out if the heart is touching the cat. That means they've had a collision. Then we want to get an extra life. So just go to your data there, change lives by 1. And that just adds 1 onto our lives. Okay. We also want to hide the heart once it rolls through. So just go to your looks and hide the heart. As soon as it collides with the cat, it hides. Okay, and we'll have to go through this loop again before it reappears. The other thing we might do is play a little sound when we collect the heart. So in your sound tab here, we're going to need to go over to sounds first of all actually, and just pick a sound. I think the pop sound, which is usually the default sound, will sound best. Yeah, we'll just use that one. Not sure what that tom drum sound's doing there, but I'll just scrap it and just have the pop sound. And basically you just want to play sound pop. I'd probably put that in before you hide it. So every time the cat touches the heart, get a life, play the sound of the pop, and then hide that little heart. Now that needs to run forever, that code, so put it inside that forever loop. Okay, that will be running over and over again, always listening out for when we touch the heart. So now we'll play it. We'll just wait 10 seconds for the first little heart to appear on the screen. I'll make sure I run into it and watch my lives in the top right hand corner up here. Should go up. Okay, so it went from 3 to 4. Okay, so that's all well and good. I'm just going to right click and clean up that code, and that will do us. So we need to save what we've got so far. Okay, so make a new folder and probably call it Flying High. Inside of that folder, just give it the file name Flying High and save it. So we're about halfway through the game now. I'll see you in the second video where we start to bring in the good guys and the bad guys. Okay.